project about women writers for many years. Like the number of women writers has been growing exponentially, like for the last decade. And I had pitched a docuseries about women writers 10 years ago, and it was poo-pooed by the men in the boardroom because I wanted to do something that was like this film that was diverse, included women from all walks of life and all ages, and they wanted something that was like young and hot and sexy. And I was like, well, there are other females out there, other than that. So this has been like a long time in the works. For me, while I was doing, I worked as my bread and butter job in the film business as a camera person, primarily as a DIT, um, but also as a cinematographer. And so I had a break between a couple of the movies I was working on and decided to start working on this project. And then I met all these amazing women, and I didn't realize how much I was in my own backseat until I started the project. And, I became so inspired by the women, and they were so willing to share their stories. Like, one of the things I realized was that, like, I would never have been as vulnerable to a stranger, because I was a stranger to all of them when I met them. Like, the day that I interviewed every single one of these people was the first day that I ever met them.
Oh my gosh, that was one of my first questions, was how did you meet all of these? Where did you find them out in the world?
It was sort of just a chain of events. Like the first the first people that I met, I had bought my bike. So I had just finished a movie in Boston, and I was like, okay, well, the next project I had went away. So I had this open block of time. So I bought a bike there in Boston. And when I was picking my bike up, they were having some sort of like fair. And there was a guy there, selling some stuff. And he took a picture of me receiving my motorcycle and brought it over to me. And then we just started talking. And then he was like, oh, my wife just started riding. And, oh, I know these other women who are part of like Women in the Wind. And, so it was just like, just having conversations led to, the people that I met. So I met with those three women. And then somebody I had also just happened to be having a conversation with, she was like, oh, I know somebody in Arizona, and that person connected me to a bunch of other people. And it was just this like food chain. And then I also did some like researching online and internet stalking. And I was like, hey, you don't know me, but I'm going to be passing through your town with a camera and a motorcycle. You want to get together? And some people said no, but some people did say yes. So
that's great. That's very interesting. I guess seeing the pictures towards the end and seeing you guys all together, I think it's really cool that you got other people together too, it seems, right?
Well, usually, like, if I would make like the group of young millennials in Kansas City, I had just contacted one of them, and she was like, oh, maybe I can get another, maybe somebody else is free, will come and join me. And when I showed up, there was like 12 women there. So, sometimes it was like that also, like, they would bring more people when they knew that I was coming. And so I would show up and there'd be people I wasn't expecting, more women writers.
Sweet. Well, let's move over to Esther and talk to you a little bit. How are you today? Thank you for joining us. Oh, we can't hear you. I think you might be on mute.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Oh, good.
Yay. Thank you so much. Give us a little background on yourself, would you?
So yeah, I'm an editor. I've been a documentary editor for probably since 2004. So it's been a while, and I've really specialized in documentary mostly, and just love it. It's such a soulful for me. When I see this film, I end up smiling from all these stories after having not seen it for so long. And I think editing to me is what biking is for Indy and all these other women. And yeah, so I love it. And this project was super fun to work on. I'm so thankful that Indy actually sought me out.
That's great. Yeah, you want to talk about how you guys got involved with each other?
Well, I had gone through, I had worked with 3 different editors before Esther, and, I was really looking for somebody, they were all good in some way and skilled, um, technically, but I really wanted somebody who was very story oriented, and she specializes in or has done a lot of, personal documentary, um, work. And so, I was like, how am I going to find the person I need? And so like I was combing through like different organizations I was part of, and uh women in media is something that we're both in, and they had something like 108 editors. And I went through and literally read every single one of their bios, went to their websites, looked at their IMDb page. And then when I found her, I was like, oh yes, yes, this is the
I
person.
love that story. I love that story so much, and it's so great that you're utilizing the resources and the places where you can go to find women, and that you got to choose so thoughtfully. That's really nice. What a nice little union we have here.
Yeah, it
Um,
was a
Yeah.
nice surprise.
Yeah, and then when I interviewed her, like, right away, she had all these amazing ideas, and I was just so thankful, like, because when you find that match, it becomes magic.
yeah, we have a lot of questions waiting in the queue, so let me get started on those. Yes, this is a great question. And one I always like to ask documentary filmmakers, how much footage did you have? And how did you begin to structure to create it into a narrative? And did you, yeah, just how did you, what was the process? Did you gather all the footage first, or what was your thought process?
Well, I think I may have approached it differently than a lot of, when I first started the trip, I thought I was gonna do a web series, because I was like, I knew I was gonna be interviewing women along the way on my ride, and I just thought I was maybe gonna do profile pieces, but as I was riding and hearing their stories, I started seeing all these intertwining themes. So then I was like, okay, well, it's, these themes, you know, uh it became like the shape of this like 7-part docu-series. And then as I was editing, I was like, it was intersecting, and working with the other editors, it was intersecting so much that and I had an editor friend who was consulting with me, and he was like, this is definitely like a long form piece. Um, and that's when I realized that I really needed somebody who was like story minded. Because I had about probably 25 hours in interviews, and maybe like 20 hours of B-roll, and then like 30 hours of riding footage. So it was chunky, you Um,
And how
it,
long, we've got another question. How long did it take you to make this film? How long have you been in the process?
it was 4.5 years.
Wow.
Um, but it was also like I didn't do anything for a year during COVID. It's because of like other things took priority. So there was definitely like a dip because of the COVID time. But part of it was finding the right team people. I'd been looking for Esther for years. I think it probably might have happened sooner if she had come into my life sooner, because she's really the one that broke that structure. Like I told her, kind of what I was thinking thematically in terms of the themes, but she's the one who figured out how to craft that. Um, and also it's like raising funds. Like I would run out of money and then I'd have to go back to work. Um, a lot of it is self-financed. I did do a crowdfunding campaign, and we got some grants. We got a grant after her rough cut. Once she
Nice.
broke that structure, then we were able to get some. We got a grant for all of the music. Um, but so it's just like all those steps to kind of keep it going took time.
So we have another question here. Were you surprised to see these universal themes that connected these women from all over?
Yeah, I was. And also, I mean, I was surprised. I was actually, even though I'd been watching the statistics, I was surprised how many women I met. You know, it was just like there was just like so many women everywhere. And um, yeah, I was surprised to find how much their stories were compelling to me, who, you know, has all my own stories about being a woman and the stuff that I, you know, come up against. And, you know, it was, you know, I became inspired by them, and I felt like, well, if I'm getting inspired, then other people will be too.
I can speak to that too. I think something that was really fascinating with the project when I started it is that there were three different storylines. There was the A story of Indy's inner journey, and there was all the women's journeys and their individual stories and struggles. And there was the journey itself, you know, the road trip that she embarks on. And it was a matter of how you connect these themes together at this and connect Indy's journey, inner journey to getting as she's getting answers through her questions to the other women, like that question of fear, that question of am I crazy to do this, and getting, and as you move along, you kind of sense that Indy's journey is kind of getting filled by the similar themes that everyone is going through on their own journeys. So I thought that was something very powerful that came out from this film, how it marries between that.
Yes, Gail says personal, political, and spiritual themes. Very true. How many hours of footage did you end up having to go through?
You know, I don't remember. It's been so long. I just remember, you know, that Indy did have a really great rough cut. It had like a lot of great moments, but I think there were some characters that were missing from, like I don't know if we had Tiara in there yet, with her story. And, you know, how she's talking about the bike in this dancing way, in this very
Oh,
spiritual
wasn't that
way, and
great?
has that
Yeah,
ritual moment. She's one of my favorites. And Allison, I don't remember if she was yet built out. So there was like a sort of, you know, some of like the best of moments or some sections that were there. But I think when I started working on it, I had to build more of the characters that had more of a through line and an arc, and adding them in, and then and trying to work from there. I just don't remember how much footage I watched too, but I think I just focused character at a time and built them, and then tried to figure out what's Indy's arc, what's Allison's arc, what's Tiara's arc, what's, you know, and then also other characters that are secondary that don't have as big of an arc, like the French girl, or some people, the three girls who are always talking together but have great moments where they talk about, you know, overcoming challenges, and once you figure out a bike you can get over anything, and or not living a life of regret. All these secondary characters, but that add a really amazing push the theme a little further. So it was like kind of finding that balance. How do you intertwine also like some of these stronger arcs with secondary characters, or, you know, and so I think of it more in terms of story than the amount of footage, but because I think that's what takes the longest, is trying to figure out the structure. But that's what comes easy to me, is more the structure than anything. So it's fun.
So we have another question, and we get this a lot. Getting financing is a question we get a lot. How were you able to do a successful crowd fund?
Um, well, I did it with Seed and Spark, and they really want people to be successful. So they have all of these basically classes that they offer for free on the website that you're required to take actually. You know, they're so invested that your campaign is successful that first you take all of their classes, and then you do like a rough construction of your campaign and you turn it into them and they give you feedback on it. They literally work with you and they don't let you launch until they feel like you can be successful, and obviously not everybody is, but they have something like an 80% or 90% success rate. And it's because they really work with you to make sure that you're ready when you launch and you have everything in place. And I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. That's not my skill set at all. But because they gave me so much information to do it, I had a lot more tools.
We have another question, and this is a good one. Watched this with my boyfriend who now wants a bike. You inspired him. How did other men react to this film when it came out?
Well, yeah, I wasn't sure, but so far it's all been really positive. Like when we had the premiere screened in Vegas at the Women's Nevada Film Festival, and I was just standing outside right afterwards, just sort of like on a high from the premiere. And this young guy came out. He was probably like 25 and started talking to me about how much he enjoyed it. And that was, that he was young and male, like really, I was super psyched about, because I didn't know, I didn't know whether it would resonate at all, or whether it would be annoying or alienating. So, and and that's been, at every film festival, I've gotten positive feedback from the men that have been there, of all ages now. So
Super
yeah,
great.
it's been good.
Let's see. I had something else I wanted to ask you real quick. Talk to me about where do you go from here now? Where does the film go from here? And then where do you as a filmmaker go?
So I've just started kind of distribution talks. So I'm in negotiations with where, my goal is to get it on a streaming platform, like Hulu or Prime. Netflix is challenging, but so that's the next step, is to get it somewhere where it can get like grand exposure. And yeah, I would love for as many people to see it as possible.
That's the goal, right?
That's the goal. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, just, in terms of next steps for me personally, I'm started working on my next project. I have a short film in the works and a couple features, one that I'm in a redraft stage of, and one that's a newer one. And, so it's like just, that next process. So
Are
I'm
they
super excited about.
Are they documentaries as well? Can you give us any spoilers?
They're all narrative. The short film is, which I plan to expand later, but I want to get the short film going. I'm actually collaborating with a friend of mine who works with the survivors of sex trafficking in one of the most populated states for that, in Kansas. So we're working together on a project to.
Kansas is really the main. I did not know that. You just educated me.
I know, right? It's like mind blowing. And I want to do a documentary about her and all of her work there. But I feel like, this narrative piece that we're working on, it's from it's the story of a survivor and from her voice, and I feel like that's going to be first. I want to do that first. And one of the features is, which I had written actually before doing this documentary, is in the same theme. It's a coming of age story about a young girl who's estranged from her parents, gets in trouble with the law, and gets rescued by a female motorcycle gang. And then it goes from there. So
I guess you've got plenty of cast to choose from now. You've got your background motorcycle riders all ready to go.
Right.
Indy, if you need an editor for these.
Yes, right?
You know where I'm coming.
I think you might be locked in, Esther. I think you might be locked in. Do you have any projects you're working on, Esther, that we can see that you're proud of?
Actually, I have a couple that one was just at the Bend film festival. It was a short doc about Tibetans who forage for this caterpillar fungus. And it was at Ashland as well. So that just finished. There's another short doc that I edited that will be screening at New York Doc Fest called a young girl who's grieving for her father, but who explores all the unfinished business she had with him. It's called The Return, and there is and now I am working on a feature doc. I can't say what it is. I signed an NDA, but it's a pretty cool project, and I'm very excited to be on board.
Yes, that's very exciting. I really wanted to commend you again. I think another takeaway that I really got from your film was the shift of visibility. And I think it sounds like your next project is continuing to kind of focus on that and be a storyteller. We have to say that a lot. I love that on our board this year we have a woman who's a truck driver, and it's kind of the same thing. It's a very male dominated area. However, there are so many stories out there, and we need to hear from everyone. I think you did a great job with the diversity. You had a mom there, you had gender neutral there, you had all of the things that encompass who we are and what we as women go through. And I just think you represented that super, super well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The other thing that I really loved is that each person that you interviewed talked a lot about their intention and how they do things more intentionally now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it gives me goosebumps, and I got inspired. And I loved that line too, that you can't plot a place for your heart to be free. And so those are words that I'm going to take with me when I, through my life. So I think let's see if we have any more questions. And if not, we will move over to the coffee place. Let me just find out real quick.
Do we click on it? Do we click on the
cafe? Yes. All right, great. So we're going to meet in the cafe for some additional conversations. If anybody would like to join us there, ladies, I appreciate both of your amazing work. Thank you for being the voices of women, especially in that culture, but everywhere, really, because it's what we're all fighting the good fight, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say, like, this room is amazing, and these like hands coming up are amazing. Like, this is such a cool experience.
I love this, right? Well, we can thank Alicia and Connie, our festival directors, for creating this amazing space for us not only to watch together, but to actually have a conversation afterwards together from the comfort of our own homes. And I'm just glad that my 7-year-old did not run in here and try to take over the microphone, because that's usually the only danger I have when I do these things from home.
Thank you so much for having us, Tiffany. It's really
we
great.
Appreciate you. We'll see you at the cafe.
All right.